The starship T-Kron-7 drifted in the void of space, a magnificent hunk of metal and technology that had once been a beacon of hope for the Krelaxians. Now, it was little more than a glorified paperweight, its vibrant hull dulled by the dust of 1,000 asteroids. Inside, its crew of engineers, a motley group of six-eyed beings with tentacle-like appendages, huddled around the main control panel. Their once enthusiastic chatter had dwindled to despondent murmurs. "Power fluctuations," Zylor muttered, his eyes flickering with a combination of frustration and despair. "We've analyzed every circuit, every conduit. It's as if the ship has decided to simply stop functioning." "Perhaps it is cursed," suggested G-Wrath, a more superstitious member of the crew. "The legends speak of ships that are haunted by their own failures." "Cursed or not, we need to get it operational," Zylor replied, exasperated. "We've already missed the trade rendezvous with the Zylorians. We'll never hear the end of it." The engineers exchanged glances, their tentacles writhing nervously. They had tried everything, recalibrating the warp core, realigning the power conduits, even consulting the ancient texts of Krelaxian engineering. Nothing worked. The T-Kron-7 was a lost cause, or so they thought. Just then, a human named Jake stumbled into the control room, his arrival marked by a distinct clumsiness that was both endearing and alarming. He had been sent aboard as part of a cultural exchange program, tasked with learning about alien technology while sharing insights from Earth. To the Krelaxians, he was a curiosity, a bipedal creature with a penchant for coffee and a surprising lack of awareness about how to operate interstellar machinery. "Hey, what's going on?" Jake asked, his voice bright and casual, completely at odds with the somber atmosphere. He peered at the control panel, his brow furrowing in confusion as he tried to decipher the glowing symbols. "You guys look like you just lost a game of cosmic chess." "Cosmic chess?" Zylor echoed, his many eyes narrowing in skepticism. "We are not playing games, human. The ship is broken." "Broken? Like?" "Broken." Jake leaned closer, inadvertently pressing a few buttons. The control panel emitted a series of beeps and whirs, and the engineers collectively gasped, their tentacles twitching. "Do not touch that," G-Wrath screeched, but it was too late. The panel flickered, and a holographic display projected a chaotic array of data points and error messages. "Oops," Jake said, scratching his head. "So what's the problem?" Zylor took a deep breath, his frustration boiling just beneath the surface. "The power core is malfunctioning. We have exhausted every possible solution. The T-Kron-7 is." "Have you tried turning it off and on?" Jake interrupted, his tone casual, as if he were discussing the weather. The Krelaxians stared at him, their collective disbelief palpable. Zylor's eyes widened. "You cannot be serious. This is a sophisticated starship, not a simple Earth appliance." "Yeah, but you know how it is," Jake shrugged, a grin creeping onto his face. "Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. I mean, have you ever tried it?" The engineers exchanged incredulous glances, turning it off and on. It was absurd, reckless even. Yet, they had exhausted all rational options. Perhaps a little chaos was worth a shot. "Fine," Zylor said, his voice laced with resignation. "We will humor you, human. G-Wrath, prepare to disconnect the power core." G-Wrath hesitated, his tentacles curling in uncertainty. "Are we really doing this? It feels wrong." "Just do it," Zylor barked, the tension in the room thickening. As G-Wrath initiated the shutdown sequence, Jake couldn't help but chuckle. "You guys are really serious about your technology, huh? Back on Earth, we'd just call it a day and grab a burger if something broke." "Burgers?" Zylor echoed, baffled. "What is a burger?" Jake smiled, clearly enjoying the distraction. "Oh, it's this amazing food. Ground meat, toppings, all in a bun. You'd love it." But the Krelaxians were preoccupied with their own crisis. The lights dimmed as the ship powered down, leaving the engineers and their human companion in an eerie twilight. The silence was tangible, broken only by the soft hum of the life support systems. "Now what?" G-Wrath asked nervously, glancing at the control panel as if it were a sleeping beast ready to awaken. Now we wait, I guess Jake replied, leaning back against a console. And maybe think about those burgers. Just as the engineers were about to question the sanity of their decision, Jake's casual demeanor began to feel like a balm. In that moment, they realized that perhaps a little lightheartedness was exactly what they needed. The control room was cloaked in an uneasy quiet, broken only by the gentle thrum of the life support systems. The Krelaxians exchanged glances, their tentacles twitching with a mix of hope and skepticism. Jake, unfazed by the tension, leaned casually against the console, a grin plastered on his face. "Okay, so what's the plan once we turn it back on?" Jake asked, his voice light. "Do we just hit the big red button or something?" Zylorians rolled his eyes, exasperated. "There is no big red button, human. We will reinitialize the power core and hope that the systems come back online." "Sounds simple enough," Jake replied, his tone a blend of sarcasm and genuine curiosity. "You Krelaxians sure know how to make things complicated." "Complicated?" G-Wrath echoed, his voice tinged with incredulity. "This is advanced technology. You cannot simply dismiss it as complicated." "Sure, but sometimes the most advanced technology needs a little break, like me after a long day of work," Jake said, chuckling. "A good nap does wonders." The engineers looked at him, bewildered. They had spent countless cycles analyzing every component of their ship, and here was this human suggesting that a nap might solve their problems. It was absurd, yet somehow refreshing. "Let's not get distracted," Zylorians said, shaking his head, powering it back on now. With a few deft movements, G-Wrath initiated the reactivation sequence. The control panel flickered to life, lights blinking in a rhythmic dance. The tension in the room thickened as they all watched, breath held in anticipation. Come on," Jake muttered under his breath, his casual demeanor shifting to an edge of excitement. Zylorians' eyes widened as the power core hummed, its energy surging through the ship's systems. "It's working. The diagnostics are stabilizing." The engineers erupted into a chorus of cheers, their tentacles flailing in a chaotic celebration of success. Jake joined in, clapping his hands with childlike glee. "See, I told you it would work. Sometimes you just need to give things a fresh start." G-Wrath, still a bit skeptical, glanced at the control panel. "But what if it fails again? We cannot keep turning it off and on. This is not a game." "True, but it's a start," Jake replied, his tone shifting to something more serious. "You guys are brilliant. Maybe you just need to take a step back and think differently. Sometimes fresh eyes can see what others can't." Zylorians nodded thoughtfully, the wheels in his mind turning. "Perhaps you are right, human. Our focus has been so intense that we overlooked the possibility of a simple reset." "Exactly. Sometimes a change in perspective is all it takes," Jake said, feeling a surge of confidence. "And hey, if that doesn't work, I can always suggest a burger." The control panel beeped, and the ship's systems hummed back to life. The engineers' joy was palpable, their tentacles intertwining in a dance of camaraderie. "Let us run the full diagnostics," G-Wrath suggested, a newfound optimism in his voice. "If the systems remain stable, we can prepare for our next jump." As they worked, Jake couldn't help but marvel at the intricate machinery surrounding him. It was a world unlike any he had ever known, filled with glowing interfaces and alien technology that seemed to pulse with life. He felt an unexpected kinship with the Krelaxians, who were just as confused and curious about him as he was about them. "Hey, do you guys ever get bored?" Jake asked, wiping sweat from his brow as he helped G-Wrath adjust a control lever. "I mean, working on a ship like this must get monotonous sometimes." "Monotonous?" Zylorians echoed, raising an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" "Like same old," Jake explained. "Doing the same thing every day. Don't you ever want a break?" G-Wrath glanced at Zylorians, a look of contemplation passing between them. "Breaks are important for mental health, but we are dedicated to our work," G-Wrath replied slowly. "We take pride in our craft." "Pride is great, but so is fun," Jake countered, his enthusiasm infectious. Why not mix it up a little? Maybe throw a party or something? Get some music going, snacks, and just enjoy being alive. The Krelaxians stared at him, their expressions a blend of confusion and intrigue. Music? Snacks, Zylorians asked, his voice laced with skepticism. What are these things? Trust me, you haven't lived until you've experienced a good snack, Jake said, a grin spreading across his face. It's like a tiny party in your mouth. As the diagnostics ran, the atmosphere shifted. The engineers began to let loose, their laughter echoing in the control room, a sound that felt as foreign as it was welcome. They couldn't quite grasp the concept of a snack party, but the notion of breaking the cycle of work resonated with them. Perhaps we can incorporate some Earth customs into our routine, Zylorians suggested, a hint of a smile creeping onto his face. It could foster better morale. Exactly, Jake beamed, feeling a sense of camaraderie growing, and who knows, maybe it'll help with the ship's energy too, positive vibes and all that. The ship hummed around them, its system stabilizing as the engineers continued their work. The Krelaxians found themselves inspired, their earlier despair fading into a newfound sense of purpose. Maybe Jake was onto something. Maybe they could adapt, just as he had suggested. As the diagnostics completed, the ship's systems confirmed that everything was operating smoothly. The T-Cron 7 was back online, and with it a sense of hope surged within the crew. Ready for the next jump, Zylorians asked, his tentacles twitching in excitement, a stark contrast to the somber mood of earlier. Absolutely, Jake replied, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Let's go see what this baby can do. And as the starship roared back to life, propelled into the cosmos, the Krelaxians and their human companion felt a sense of unity that transcended their differences. They were a crew, a team, and together they were ready to face whatever the universe had in store. The T-Cron 7 surged forward, its engines humming with renewed vigor. The stars outside the viewport stretched into streaks of light as the ship entered warp speed. Inside the control room, the Krelaxians were abuzz with excitement, their earlier despondency replaced by a sense of purpose. Jake, leaning against the console, could hardly contain his enthusiasm. Now this is what I'm talking about, he exclaimed, watching the stars blur together. You guys really know how to make a ship fly. Indeed, Zylorians replied, his eyes bright with a mix of pride and relief. We have perfected our technology over eons, however your input has been invaluable. Just doing my part, Jake grinned, feeling a rush of camaraderie. So what's next on the agenda? Are we heading to the Zylorian trade rendezvous? Yes, but we must first navigate through the nebula of uncertainty, Zylorians said, his tone serious. It is a treacherous area filled with gravitational anomalies. Sounds ominous, Jake replied, his brow furrowing slightly. What's a gravitational anomaly? It's a distortion in space-time, Zylorians explained. In layman's terms, it can cause our ship to veer off course or even become trapped. Great. Just the kind of adventure I was hoping for, Jake said, his excitement undeterred. What do we need to do? Focus is paramount, Zylorians instructed, his tentacles twitching with concentration. We will need to calibrate our navigational systems to account for the anomalies. Got it, Jake nodded, stepping up to the control panel. His fingers danced over the buttons, mimicking the Krelaxians' movements as he tried to absorb their expertise. So we just keep adjusting until we find the right balance. Precisely, Zylorians said, impressed by Jake's willingness to engage. You have a knack for understanding our technology, human. Years of video games, Jake replied with a wink. It's all about trial and error. As they worked together, the ship entered the nebula of uncertainty. The view outside transformed, dramatically vibrant swirls of color danced across the viewport, illuminating the control room in a kaleidoscope of hues. It was breathtaking, and Jake couldn't help but be mesmerized. Wow, this is incredible, he breathed, leaning closer to the glass. It's like a cosmic art show. Focus, Jake, Zylorians reminded him, snapping him back to reality. The anomalies can appear at any moment. Right. Back to work, Jake said, shaking his head to clear his thoughts. Let's do this. They navigated cautiously through the nebula, adjusting the ship's trajectory as they encountered gravitational pulls that threatened to throw them off course. Each time they encountered a disturbance, Jake and the Krelaxians worked in tandem, their movements synchronized in a way that felt almost instinctual. Left. No, right, Jake shouted, his voice tinged with urgency. Just a little more. Engaging thrusters, G-Wrath responded, his tentacles moving deftly across the controls. With every successful maneuver, the crew's confidence grew. They were no longer just a group of engineers bogged down by despair, they were a team united by a shared goal. The nebula, once ominous, transformed into a thrilling challenge. Suddenly, the ship jolted violently, throwing Jake off balance. He stumbled but quickly regained his footing. The lights flickered and alarms blared as the ship was caught in a gravitational whirlpool. Stabilizers are failing, Zylorians shouted, his eyes darting across the control panel. We need to regain control. Okay, what do I do? Jake yelled, adrenaline coursing through him. Just tell me. Recalibrate the navigational sensors, G-Wrath instructed, his tentacles moving frantically. We must counteract the gravitational pull. Right. I can do that, Jake shouted, diving back to the console. His fingers flew over the buttons, imitating the Krelaxians' precise movements. The ship lurched again, but Jake pressed on, focusing on the readings. Come on, he muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. More power to the stabilizers, Zylorians commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos. Jake adjusted the settings, feeling the ship respond beneath him. Slowly, the violent jolts began to subside, the alarms fading to a low hum. Almost there, Jake shouted, his heart racing. Just a little more. With one final adjustment, the ship stabilized. The control room fell quiet, the only sound the soft whir of the systems returning to normal. The vibrant colors of the nebula swirled outside, now calm and inviting. We did it, Jake exclaimed, pumping his fist in the air. We actually did it. The Krelaxians erupted into cheers, their tentacles entwining in a celebratory dance. For the first time since they had boarded the T-Kron 7, they felt a sense of triumph. Your quick thinking saved us, human, Zylorians said, his tone sincere. We would not have made it without your help. Jake beamed, a swell of pride filling his chest. Thanks. But honestly, it was a team effort. You guys are amazing. As they continued through the nebula, the mood shifted from tense to jubilant. The engineers began to share stories of their past adventures, tales of near misses and ingenious solutions. Jake listened intently, laughing and contributing his own anecdotes from Earth, each story more bizarre than the last. Tell us more about these burgers, G-Wrath asked, his curiosity piqued. They sound fascinating. Oh, you have no idea, Jake replied, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. They're a culinary masterpiece. Imagine a grilled patty, perfectly seasoned, topped with melted cheese, crispy lettuce, and a special sauce. It's like a flavor explosion. The Krelaxians listened, captivated. They had never encountered food like this, and the idea of a meal that could bring joy was a novel concept. As the T-Kron 7 emerged from the nebula, the stars outside sparkled with renewed brilliance. The trade rendezvous with the Zylorians lay ahead, and in that moment the crew felt ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. Jake leaned against the console, a contented smile on his face. He had come aboard as an outsider, but now he felt like part of something bigger. The Krelaxians had taught him about resilience, and in return he had reminded them of the power of perspective. Together, they had turned a dire situation into an unforgettable adventure. Next stop, the Zylorian trade rendezvous, Zylorians announced, his voice filled with determination. Let's do it, Jake cheered, feeling the thrill of the unknown ahead. And as the T-Kron 7 soared through the cosmos, it was clear that this unlikely crew had forged a bond that would transcend the stars. They were united by their differences, their laughter echoing through the control room, a testament to the extraordinary adaptability of life among the stars. As the T-Cron 7 glided through the cosmos, the anticipation of the Zylorian trade rendezvous hung in the air like the scent of freshly baked bread. The Krelaxians busied themselves with preparations, their tentacles moving in harmonious coordination, while Jake took a moment to soak in the sights outside the viewport. The stars sparkled like diamonds scattered across velvet, and he felt a thrill at the thought of what lay ahead. "Are we there yet?" Jake asked, half-jokingly, as he leaned back in his chair, a playful grin on his face. "Patience," Human G-Wrath replied, adjusting a dial on the control panel. "We will arrive shortly. The Zylorians are known for their punctuality, and we must not keep them waiting." Right, no pressure," Jake said, chuckling to himself. "Just a simple trade meeting with an alien race. What could go wrong?" Zylorians shot him a bemused look. "You have a peculiar sense of humor. But you are correct, we must remain vigilant. The Zylorians are shrewd negotiators." "Got it," Jake replied, straightening up. "I'll try to keep my jokes to a minimum. So what are we trading? I hope it's not just space rocks." "Space rocks," G-Wrath echoed, his eyes narrowing in confusion. "What are those?" "Just an Earth saying," Jake said quickly, waving a hand. I hope we have something valuable to offer. I'm all for shiny things, but I'm not sure how much they'll fetch." Zylorians nodded, his tentacles tapping rhythmically against the console. "We have technology to trade advanced propulsion systems and energy converters. These will be of great interest to the Zylorians." "Sweet. So we're not just bartering for snacks," Jake grinned, imagining a galaxy where food was the ultimate currency. "Snacks are not currency," Jake G-Wrath replied with mock seriousness. "But they can be a valuable addition to any trade agreement." As the ship approached the Zylorian trade station, a massive structure floated in the void, resplendent with shimmering lights and intricate designs. The Zylorian architecture was unlike anything Jake had seen, curved surfaces and glowing patterns that seemed to dance in rhythm with the stars. "Wow, look at that," Jake exclaimed, his excitement bubbling over. "It's beautiful." "Indeed, it is," Zylorians replied, his tone shifting to one of admiration. "The Zylorians take great pride in their aesthetics." As they docked, the crew prepared for disembarkation. Jake felt a flutter of nerves mixed with exhilaration. He had been aboard the T-Cron 7 for a while now, but this would be his first encounter with another alien race. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the camaraderie he had built with the Krelaxians. "Remember," Zylorians said, turning to the crew, "we are here to establish a mutually beneficial agreement. Keep your wits about you." "Got it," Captain Jake said, giving a mock salute. "I'll be on my best behavior." As they exited the ship, the Krelaxians led the way, their tentacles gliding gracefully as they approached the Zylorian representatives. Jake followed closely, trying to mimic their composure. The Zylorians awaited them, tall, slender beings with fluid movements and skin that shimmered like polished silver. "Greetings, Krelaxians," one of the Zylorian leaders said, their voice melodious and resonant. "We welcome you to our station." "Thank you," Zylorians replied, stepping forward confidently. "We come to trade technology and foster our alliance." Jake watched as the exchange unfolded, fascinated by the nuances of their communication. The Zylorians studied the Krelaxians with keen interest, their expressions inscrutable. "And what of the human?" another Zylorian inquired, glancing at Jake. "What role does he play in this exchange?" Jake felt a surge of self-consciousness. "I'm just here to learn and, help out where I can," he said, trying to sound casual. "I might have some insights on Earth technology if you're interested." The Zylorians exchanged glances, their curiosity piqued. "Earth technology," one asked, tilting their head slightly. "What is this Earth?" "It's my home planet," Jake explained, his excitement bubbling over. "We have some pretty nifty gadgets, smartphones, renewable energy sources, and even some cool entertainment tech." Entertainment, the Zylorian echoed, their voice laced with intrigue. What does this entail? Movies, games, music, you name it, Jake replied, his enthusiasm infectious. It's all about storytelling and creativity. I could show you some examples if you'd like. The Zylorians looked at each other, clearly intrigued. Perhaps there is more to this human than we initially thought, one said, their voice thoughtful. We would be interested in learning more about your culture. As the negotiations continued, Jake found himself swept up in the conversation, sharing stories about Earth's innovations and quirks. The Krelaxians watched with a mix of pride and astonishment as their human companion effortlessly bridged the gap between two alien cultures. Your insights are refreshing, human Zylorian said, a hint of admiration in his voice. You have a unique ability to connect with others. Thanks. I guess I'd just like to talk, Jake replied, feeling a sense of belonging he hadn't anticipated. As the day wore on, the discussions shifted from technology to cultural exchange. The Zylorians shared their own advancements, bioluminescent energy sources, organic materials that self-repair, and art that could change based on emotions. Jake was captivated, his imagination ignited by the possibilities. Imagine if we combined our technologies, he mused, his eyes sparkling. We could create something truly extraordinary. The Zylorians nodded, their interest visibly growing. Collaboration is indeed the key to progress, one said. We will consider your proposal. As the meeting came to a close, both parties felt a sense of accomplishment. They had not only exchanged technology but had also forged a connection that transcended their differences. Thank you for your hospitality, Zylorian said, bowing slightly. We look forward to future collaborations. As they made their way back to the T-7, Jake felt a warmth in his chest. The adventure had taken unexpected turns, but here they were, an unlikely crew, navigating the vastness of space and forming bonds that defied the odds. See? No need to stress about the trade, Jake said, grinning at G-Wrath. Just a little creativity and a willingness to share. G-Wrath chuckled, the sound echoing in the emptiness of space. You have a way of making the complex seem simple, human. Perhaps we should have you negotiate all our trades. Only if I get to bring burgers to the next meeting, Jake replied with a laugh. As they boarded the ship, the stars twinkled outside, a reminder of the vast universe they inhabited. Together they were ready for whatever awaited them next, united by their shared experiences and a newfound sense of purpose. The T-7 was more than just a ship, it was a symbol of adaptability, resilience, and the extraordinary connections that could be forged in the most unlikely of circumstances. As the T-7 prepared for departure, the atmosphere aboard was charged with excitement. The crew had successfully navigated the complexities of interspecies diplomacy, and the prospect of combining technologies with the Zylorians felt like the dawn of a new era. Jake settled into his seat at the control panel, a satisfied grin on his face. Next destination, he asked, glancing at Zylorian, who was reviewing the trade agreements. Back to Krelaxia to finalize the arrangements, Zylorian replied, his tentacles moving gracefully over the console. We will need to prepare our engineers for the integration of Zylorian technology. Right? And maybe we can brainstorm some ideas for the next trade meeting, Jake suggested. I mean, it's not every day you get to work with an alien race. Indeed, G-Wrath chimed in, his enthusiasm palpable. We could explore ways to incorporate Earth's entertainment technology into our presentations. It might make our trade discussions more engaging. Now you're talking, Jake exclaimed. Imagine showcasing the Zylorian technology with some Earth-style presentations. A little music, some visuals, it would be a hit. As the ship launched into warp speed, the crew began to settle into their roles. The Krelaxians resumed their engineering duties, their tentacles moving deftly over the controls, while Jake took a moment to reflect on the whirlwind of events that had led them here. His mind wandered back to Earth, to the familiar sights and sounds of his home planet. He missed it, but the thrill of intergalactic adventure was intoxicating. He had traded mundane routines for the vastness of space, and he couldn't help but feel grateful for the unexpected friendships he had forged along the way. Jake Zylorians' voice broke his reverie. Are you prepared for the next phase of our alliance? Absolutely, Jake replied, his determination renewed. I'm ready to dive into this. What do you need me to do? Zylorians paused, his many eyes narrowing thoughtfully. We will need your input on how to present our findings to our council. Your perspective as an outsider may provide valuable insights. Count me in, Jake said, his excitement bubbling again. I'd be honored to help. As they traveled through the stars, Jake engaged the Krelaxians in discussions about presentation styles. He shared ideas on storytelling techniques and visual aids, drawing from his experiences in Earth's media and entertainment industries. The Krelaxians listened intently, their tentacles moving in animated gestures as they processed his suggestions. Perhaps we could create a holographic display, G-Wrath proposed. It would allow us to visually demonstrate the benefits of our combined technologies. Exactly, Jake replied, his enthusiasm infectious. And we could include interactive elements, so the Zylorians can engage with the technology firsthand. Zylorians nodded, impressed. Your creativity is commendable, human. It is refreshing to work with someone who thinks outside the confines of traditional engineering. Thanks. I'll do my best to keep the ideas flowing, Jake said, feeling a sense of pride swell within him. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how our cultures can blend. As they neared Krelaxia, the ship's sensors detected a disturbance ahead. Alarms blared, and the control panel lit up with warning signals. Report, Zylorians commanded, his tone shifting to one of urgency. Unknown vessel detected, G-Wrath said, his tentacles moving swiftly across the controls. It appears to be blocking our path. Can we identify it? Jake asked, his heart racing. Not yet, G-Wrath replied, his voice tense. We must approach cautiously. Zylorians' eyes narrowed as he studied the readings. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We cannot risk a confrontation. Jake felt a rush of adrenaline. What if they're just lost? Maybe they need help. Or they could be hostile, Zylorians countered. We cannot afford to be complacent. As they drew closer, the unknown vessel came into view. It was a sleek, dark ship, adorned with sharp angles and menacing designs. Jake's intuition told him they were not here for a friendly chat. Let's try to communicate, he suggested, his voice steady. Maybe we can find out what they want before jumping to conclusions. Zylorians hesitated, then nodded. Very well. G-Wrath, establish contact. Attempting to hail them now, G-Wrath said, his tentacles dancing over the controls. The ship's communication system crackled to life, sending their message into the void. This is the T-Kron 7, Krelaxian vessel. We request to know your intentions. Please respond. The silence that followed was tense, each passing second stretching into an eternity. Jake exchanged worried glances with the Krelaxians, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. Suddenly, the unknown ship responded, but the voice that crackled through the speakers was harsh and distorted. Krelaxians, you are trespassing in our territory. Turn back or face the consequences. Jake's heart sank. They're hostile, aren't they? He said quietly. Zylorians' expression hardened. We must prepare for evasive action. G-Wrath, plot a new course. Course plotted, G-Wrath confirmed, his tentacles moving with precision. But they are moving to intercept us. We can't let them intimidate us, Jake said, feeling a surge of determination. We need to show them we're not afraid. Your bravery is commendable, human, Zylorians replied, a hint of respect in his voice. But we must prioritize our safety. Agreed, G-Wrath added. We will not engage unless absolutely necessary. As the hostile ship closed in, the T-Kron 7 began to maneuver, its engines roaring to life. Jake gripped the edge of his seat, adrenaline coursing through him. Here we go, he muttered, the weight of the moment settling heavily on his shoulders. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Zylorians shouted, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. With a sudden jolt, the T-Kron-7 veered sharply, narrowly avoiding the path of the approaching vessel. The control panel lit up with warnings, but Jake focused on the task at hand, his instincts kicking in. "Keep it steady. We need to maintain our course," he shouted, adrenaline sharpening his focus. The hostile ship fired a warning shot, a burst of energy that whizzed past the T-Kron-7, illuminating the darkness of space. The crew felt the impact reverberate through the hull, a stark reminder of the danger they faced. "Return fire," G-Wrath suggested, his tentacles twitching with tension. "No," Zylorians commanded. "We will not escalate the situation unless forced to." Jake's heart raced as they executed another evasive maneuver, the ship twisting and turning like a dancer in the void. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being tested, and he could only hope that their resolve would see them through. "Can we outmaneuver them?" Jake asked, glancing at the readings. "Perhaps, but we must remain cautious," Zylorians replied. G-Wrath increased speed. The T-Kron-7 surged forward, its engines roaring with power. Jake felt a rush of exhilaration as they sped through the stars, the hostile ship in pursuit. "Hang on," Zylorians shouted, his voice steady. "We're going to make a sharp turn." With a swift motion, the T-Kron-7 veered sharply, narrowly avoiding another blast from the pursuing vessel. The unknown ship struggled to keep pace, and for a brief moment hope flickered within the crew. "Now's our chance," Jake shouted, adrenaline pumping through his veins. "Let's get out of here." Zylorians nodded, his eyes focused. "Engage warp speed." With a final surge of power, the T-Kron-7 leaped into warp, the stars outside stretching into streaks of light. As they hurtled away from the danger, the crew let out a collective sigh of relief. "Status report," Zylorians commanded, his tone firm but relieved. "Warp speed engaged," G-Wrath confirmed, his tentacles relaxing slightly. "We are clear of the hostile vessel." Jake leaned back in his seat, his heart still racing. That was intense. "I can't believe we made it." Zylorians turned to him, a hint of admiration in his voice. "You showed remarkable bravery, human. Your quick thinking may have saved us." Jake shrugged, a grin breaking across his face. "Just doing what I can. But let's not make that a regular occurrence, okay?" As the T-Kron-7 sailed through the stars, the crew shared relieved laughter, the tension of the encounter melting away. They had faced a threat and emerged stronger, united by their resilience. "Let's get back to Krelaxia and focus on what truly matters," Zylorians said, his voice steady. "We have a future to build, and I believe we can achieve great things together." "Agreed," G-Wrath added, his tentacles moving with renewed purpose. "We will not let fear dictate our path." As they charted their course back home, Jake felt a sense of belonging wash over him. He was no longer just an outsider, he was part of a crew, navigating the vastness of space and forging connections that transcended the stars. Together, they would face whatever challenges awaited them, united by their shared journey.